Look at the fairy tales we learn as kids. Rumpelstiltskin making that gold, pirates with their booty. There is this kind of obsession with gold as something that you need to have to possess.
In India, gold accounts for about $3.8 trillion, which is effectively the size of the entire Indian economy.
What's going on with the price of gold? We're talking about the precious yellow metal that's important to lots of different cultures around the world. For example, in China, it's a big part of Chinese New Year. In India, gold gifts are given as part of wedding traditions. And let's be real, we've all had those dreams of getting our hands on some gold jewelry. Gold mining, that's the process to extract gold from the earth, is a global industry with operations on every continent except Antarctica. It can take 10 to 20 years before a gold mine is ready for production. It's been a crazy year, which has seen gold prices go up and up. Those records keep being broken. So in this episode, we're going to find out what's behind it all and why you should care. I'm Ikra, and this is What's in the World from the BBC World Service. So let's break this down a little bit more. We've got William from the What in the World team right here with me. Hey, William.
Hey, Ikra.
So William, when people say buy gold, what do we mean by that? What are they buying?
Buying gold is really shorthand for a few things. The first is physical gold. So this is things like gold bars or gold coins, which are typically bought by investors or banks. Jewelry is another form of physical gold, but when you buy jewelry in the shop, there's a retail markup. You're also paying for craftsmanship, and if you resell that jewelry, you're not going to get as much money back, so it's not seen as good of an investment. The next category is financial gold, and this has been really crucial in recent years in driving up the price of gold. Basically, if you have money, you can invest in something called an exchange-traded fund. So some investor owns a bunch of gold. He's got gold bars, and you've contributed to the pot, so you own a percentage of their gold. And as the price goes up, the value of what you own also goes up. And then lastly, you can buy gold indirectly through the stock market. You might invest in a mining company, for instance. So you're essentially saying, I'm investing in that company because they're going to make huge profits as they extract more gold and sell it.
And so, William, I was doing my research before we sat down and I was looking at the gold prices. I saw two different prices out there. So the price for spot gold and the price for gold bullion. What's the difference? Clear that up for us.
Right. So spot gold is really just a reference price. So if you open an investing app and you're like, how much does gold cost today? What can I get it on the spot? It's a market value. That's what spot gold is. Bullion gold, that refers to the gold bars, to the coins. And it's always going to be higher than the spot price because it reflects the spot price plus the cost of turning raw gold into something you can physically touch or hold. So the manufacturing, the refining, the shipping, the storing, the insurance, all that adds to the price. A gold coin is always going to cost more per ounce than the spot price.
And of course, one of the main reasons we're talking about this, it's been a bit of a crazy year and more than a year for gold as well. Why have the prices kept jumping up to record levels?
So in short, the world feels really uncertain right now. If you look at recent events and ongoing events, you'll see that stability, people don't feel so stable. So in January, gold hit a record price above $5,000 an ounce. That was up 80% from a year earlier when it was around $2,800. So during uncertain moments, people, investors, even banks, they turn to gold as a safe haven, something secure.
And so you mentioned that phrase, safe haven investment. I see it a lot when we're referring to gold. Why is that?
When people say safe haven, they're just talking about a safe asset during chaotic times. The fact is, gold has intrinsic value. It's worth something on its own. Look at the fairy tales we learn as kids. Rumpelstiltskin making that gold, pirates with their booty. There is this kind of obsession with gold as something that you need to have to possess, to have power, to be wealthy. Cash is different. Our system that we operate in says money has value. And for decades, the dollar has sort of been the safeguard or the strongest iteration of that system. Governments all over the world have said, if you have a dollar, you're safe because that's the standard. But as we'll see, that's changing. Gold is scarce. It's a finite resource. You can't make more of it. So it's always going to have value.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so talking about the prices surging now, why are we seeing that happening now?
There's a lot of geopolitical uncertainty right now, and specifically, I'd point to unpredictable American trade policy. If we look back to April of 2025, this is when Trump introduced his Liberation Day tariffs. Essentially, he was taxing goods imported from foreign countries, which made those items more expensive for consumers, for shoppers in the US. That made them less likely to buy those foreign goods, and that sent financial markets into a tailspin and created a lot of uncertainty. And it just created an environment where people said, whoa, what is stable? Gold. Gold is stable. And there have been so many other examples of the geopolitical instability. I actually made a list before we sat down. You can look at the fresh tensions between the US, Canada, and China, unease around the Middle East, risks of the government shutdown in Washington, the United States seizing Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, and Trump's desire to purchase Greenland, which Greenlanders have consistently said is not for sale. Another factor behind the price rise of gold is central banks around the world buying more gold bars. So basically, a central bank kind of runs the monetary policy of a country. They can print money, do other tasks related to money and currency. And a lot of countries are saying we need to diversify our portfolios. We can't be reliant on just having US dollars, reserved in banks around the world. A lot of this relates to Russia's invasion, full-scale invasion of Ukraine back in February 2022. As punishment for that, a lot of countries said we're going to freeze Russian assets. So the Russian government had money, much of it in US dollars, in banks around the world. And so as punishment, countries, United States, countries in the European Union, they froze these assets. So Russia can no longer access its US dollars abroad and other foreign currencies. So that was a wake-up call to a lot of countries. They said, whoa, we need to maybe diversify our portfolio. And of course, you have other countries who just want to diversify their portfolios more generally, protect their downside. Poland, China, Turkey, India. Central banks in these countries have all been making a run for gold bars. Another issue is inflation. As we know, prices have been rising around the world. So the cash in your pocket, it's not worth as much today as it was a year ago. Whereas gold, because gold is finite and scarce, people say this is a better store of value. And then lastly, you sort of just have to put all of this together. It's very clear that demand is rising faster than supply, but gold is not like a shoe. It's not like a phone. If demand goes up, you can't just make more of it, right? And so that's sort of built into the price rise as well.
I can't lie. I've had this image of gold jewelry in my head all throughout this chat. We mentioned it a little bit earlier. People all across the world buy gold, save gold. Which countries, though, buy the most gold and why?
So China and India are far and away the biggest consumers of gold. Together, they account for about 50% of global gold sales. And actually, why don't we talk about India first? I spoke to someone about this.
So an interesting fact is that in India, gold accounts for about $3.8 trillion, which as per some US banks is about 90% of our GDP, which means our gross domestic product, which is effectively the size of the entire Indian economy. So about 88 to 90% of that, the amount is as much gold as we hold in our houses, household gold. Weddings are a big part of what fuels our demand for gold. And so it's very, very common in Hindu cultures and in other religious cultures to be gifting and buying gold when someone is getting married. And you might give a bride a set, what is called like a set of a necklace and some earrings. You could add in like a nose accessory, something for the forehead. You could add bangles. That's of course a big deal. And for the groom side, you could do like coins. You could do other kinds of gifting of gold. Other than that, gold is also considered auspicious, especially around Diwali time. And there's a specific festival which is called Dhanteras, which comes in the run up to Diwali, a few days before Diwali, which is meant for people to buy precious metals, especially silver and gold. So those days, jewelers stay open till say 10 p.m. at night. Thousands of people across the country go and buy silver and gold because it's believed to bring like good luck. And then the third would be obviously gold as like a safekeep, gold as a hedge against bad times, gold as an investment. So a lot of families have grown up with the thinking that buy gold. When you have extra cash on hand, buy gold. It's more reliable than maybe investing your money in a stock market, which is not tangible. And so a lot of people grow up with that mindset.
So we know gold is very expensive right now. Do you think that's putting people off from buying it?
Actually, jewelers in the markets I spoke to in Delhi told me that it was the opposite. One, that people were buying more gold when prices were rising, thinking that it will continue to rise. So it becomes a good investment. And the other thing was the way in which they were buying gold was changing. For instance, gold as an investment grew, and gold as jewelry or pure accessories dropped. And so that reflected basically that people were feeling that insecurity, that prices might rise further. Let's bank in on this when we can. For instance, last year we saw that typically gold as investment accounts for 25% of gold purchasing in India, but last year it was as high as 40%, which meant that the proportion of gold as jewelry versus gold as investment changed, but the interest in gold still remained high.
It's a similar story in China, where gold really is woven into the social fabric of the country. It's associated with prosperity, with good fortune. During the Chinese Lunar New Year, it's normal to buy people gold. You buy people gold for their weddings, for births, for other major life events. There's actually a famous idiom in China. People say jade during prosperous times, gold during tough times. So you could see that in Chinese culture, gold is really viewed as a safe haven asset. And we should say that the current spike in gold prices has really impacted consumer behavior. We're seeing a shift away from people purchasing jewelry and an uptick in people buying gold for investment. So those gold bars, which you keep in a safe rather than around your neck. I just want to share some numbers with you. In China, sales of gold jewelry fell by more than 30% in 2025. But by contrast, the purchase of gold bars, investment gold, that went up 35%.
Okay, so we've been on a bit of a journey with gold. You've told us all about it throughout this episode. But William, what's next for gold?
Ooh, it's a big question. I think two things jump out. One, and this may sound incredibly simple, we will continue to be fascinated by gold. The fact is, we have, as people, been fascinated with gold for millennia. If you look at the ancient Incans, they said that gold was tears of the sun. It had a divine power. In Egypt, gold was the skin of the gods. We imbue it with all this importance. That's not going to go away. Whether it's your wedding day, whether it's, a kid's christening, gold is always going to play a role in a lot of countries' social fabric, in their day-to-day lives. That inherent fascination with gold means it will always have value. However, I think looking forward, the value is always going to fluctuate, at least the market value, because we're living in uncertain times.
William, thank you so much for all that golden knowledge. See what I did there?
Go for gold, Ikra.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're almost out of time for today, but before I leave you guys, I wanted to read out some of the comments you have been leaving on our YouTube video. It's all about how to deal with stress. Dogan says, I'm 24 years old and I've deleted all social media due to excessive doom scrolling. I just feel emotionally overwhelmed. I think the reasons why so many people feel this way is because social media causes brain rot. So thank you for that one, Dogan. I noticed there's a few people mentioning they've quit social media in the comments to help with their mental health. So keep the comments coming, guys. Remember, you can comment below and DM us on Instagram at any time at BBC What in the World over there. But for now, I'm Ikra. This is What's in the World from the BBC World Service, and I'll see you next time. Bye.